You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
We'll call this meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, July 15, 2021. I have 7:05 p.m. I'll introduce members of the commission and staff. To my far right, we have Commission Member Joe Chadwick. Next to Joe is Commission Member Joe Viuzzo. Turning the corner, we have Commission Member Paul Higgins. To my left, Commission Member Marcy Pelusi. Next to Marcy is Commission Member Massimo Ligori. Our staff this evening, we have our Town Planner Harry Smith. Next to Harry is our Assistant Planner Evan Brining. And our Clerk Recording Secretary Michelle Martin is in the corner. I'm Chuck Anders, Chair. And I will ask our Secretary to read the Notice of Public Hearing.
The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, July 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in person at the Branford Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, to consider the following. 1. Application 21-6.7, special exception for grading, section 6.8 for an open space residential development located at 14, 16, and 0 Buckley Road. Mono East Development Group, LLC applicant, John R. and Ann Hines, owners of 14 Buckley Road. Branford Building Supplies, owners of 16 and 0 Buckley Road. Item number 2, application number 21-6.4, special exception for portable storage container, trailers, containers, and boxes, use per section 4.8.K, 3 proposed for property located at 57 East Industrial Road. Paul Santa Barbara applicant, RCR Enterprises LLC, care of Christopher Russo, owner. Second sheet, application number 21-4.7, special exception for grading, section 6.8 for utility line upgrades at 45 through 55 and 46 through 52, Alex Warfield Road, the Trolley Museum, Branford Electric Railroad Association, Inc., care of John Proto, applicant and owner. Application number 21-6.3, special exception for grading, 6.8 for a single-family dwelling located at 173 Hotchkiss Grove Road, Christopher DeBell, applicant and owner. Application number 21-6.5, special exception for an indoor recreation use located at 540 East Main Street, Unit 10 and 11, David Plumey, applicant, Michael A. Balzano, Senior, trustee, owner. Application number 21-5.4, special exception modification to expand a convenience store located at 49 Leeds Island Road, Saeed Sami, applicant, Oil Barons, Inc., care of Robert Hartman, owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard and written communications will be received. A copy of the application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Commissioner's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford.
Thank you, Marcy. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings. That means the applicant goes first. I think we have some microphones over here. You come up, make your presentation. Any consultants you have with you can can assist in your presentation. After that, we'll turn it over to the commission and staff. We'll have a summary of staff report, questions, comments from commission members. At that point, we'll open it up to the public and see if the public has any member of the public wishes to speak and comment on the application. State your name and address if you're speaking on an application, please. After that, we'll allow the applicant to respond to any of the public comments that are made. And then assuming if we're ready to close the hearing, we will. Sometimes we keep the hearings open if they're complex applications. It's not unusual to have public hearings extend over more than one evening. So with that, we'll go through our agenda. Our first item on our agenda is the Buckley Road Special Exception Coastal Site Plan for the Open Space Residential Development. That's at 1416 and 0 Buckley Road, Mono East Development Group, John R. and Ann Hines, and Branford Building Supplies. Those are the applicants and owners. And this application has been withdrawn And that our understanding is that the applicant, there was a time scheduled deadline. We would have had to close the public hearing. The applicant has said that they are withdrawing the application and intend to resubmit it. So that's likely to come up again in the future if the applicant follows through what it said. Item number 2 was also an accompanying application in connection with that same development. It was the grading associated with that development, and that application has also been withdrawn. So the public hearings number 1 and 2 have both been withdrawn. Item number 3 is Syed Samni and Oil Barons, Inc. And care of Robert Hartman. That's 49 Leeds Island Road, special exception modification, expansion of a convenience store. My understanding, Harry or Evan, is that the applicant has requested, are we opening this matter and continuing it? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a matter that for 49 Leeds Island Road, special exception modification, expansion of a convenience store. And with respect to that application, we're opening the public hearing, but there's some incomplete items on the site plan. I believe they need a lighting plan and some other details. So the applicant has requested that we open this and then continue it to our next meeting, which will be on September 2nd, right here at this location. Is anyone here to speak on that? Hearing none, then we will just open and continue this item number 3 to our September 2nd meeting.
Mr. Chairman, and just for the record, a time extension has been offered to allow us to do that.
Thank you, Harry. So we do have the permission to do that. Item number 4 is Branford Electric Railroad Association, 4555 and 4652 Alex Warfield Road, a special exception for grading. And my understanding is this application has also been withdrawn. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Harry. So speeding through our agenda, we are now at item number 5, which is Christopher DeBell, applicant and owner, 173 Hotchkiss Grove Road, special exception for grading for a single-family dwelling within 100 feet of a wetland. Applicant's ready to proceed with that.
You guys didn't have to get all those people out of the way for me. Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street here in Branford, 173 Hotchkiss Grove Road. On this map, which hopefully you all have copies of, on the right-hand side is Hotchkiss Grove Road. Highlighted in red is the property line, sort of a parallelogram, so the property lines aren't perpendicular to the street line, but back here off the property is a wetland area, but we are within 100 feet, so we have already gone to wetlands and received approval for that. Shown on here in yellow is the old house, and in orange is a new house. The old house was an existing non-conforming structure. The main part of the house was a little more than 5 feet off the corner with a shower that was almost touching the property line. We will now be more than 15 feet away from the property line where we need 10. The building massing is very similar to what's there. The coverage is, the change is negligible. So we're taking down a non-conforming house, putting a new conforming house in, slightly different. I have with me here tonight also Christopher DeBell, who's the owner, and the architect David Wenchel. We did submit architectural plans, I believe, also. No?
Not in our packet.
I don't know if they were in the packet or not, but we do have plans and elevations here, if interested to see what the house looks like. Very typical for the area, New England type house. But again, if you had any questions about the architecture, the architect is here. That's it.
You want to get the large scale ones?
Application.
Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Am I correct? You didn't, coastal site plan wasn't required for this?
It's not titled, it's in the models.
Okay. I just was looking, it's fairly close, just in here, fairly close to the water, but I didn't know if we're far enough away that we didn't need it. So. Evan, did you prepare the staff report on this?
I did. This application, like Mr. Preddy said, single-family home requiring a special exception because it's 100 feet from an inland wetland. The project meets the bulk requirements of the R1 district. It's considered an undersized lot per section 3.9. They meet the requirements of section 6.8 along with section 6.10, soil erosion and sediment control. A landscaping plan was not provided. However, the applicant does identify 2 existing trees to remain and 1 to be removed. Based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are generally satisfied. And like Mr. Preddy said, they received Inland Wetland Commission approval June 30th. Staff recommends 2 conditions. Prior to the start of construction, soil erosion control measures to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer, along with dust control measures provided as necessary at the discretion of the zoning enforcement officer.
Thank you, Evan. Questions from commission members?
Where's the tree to be removed, and are you saving the 2 trees on the
So
side?
the two trees are noted here on the plan to be protected.
Yeah, and then there's 2 at the bottom.
And then, yeah, but this is off on the property line, that's not in the way. This one here, the only way to take it down is while this house is down. Kind of looms over both houses right now.
So it's oversized?
It's 4-foot diameter trunk, and it's been damaged.
What kind of tree is it?
I believe it was an oak.
Oh, 45-inch oak.
Yeah. So, the only time that you could really access that spot to get it down is when the house is down. So,
But you said it's already dropping limbs, or is it in good
yeah, it's
health?
already been.
Yeah, it's already hit the house multiple times. And when we do the new foundation and dig the house down, the root system is going to be completely disrupted.
And you don't need protection for the 30-inch oak on the front, left?
Oh, over here? No, we're not going to be that close to that over there. That's uphill.
Okay.
Any other questions from commission members? Not, we'll open up the public. Any member of the public wish to comment? Yes, ma'am? You can just come forward and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Louise Lynn.
Here, we'll give you a microphone so we can.
My name is Louise Lynn. I'm an adjacent property owner. My question is there adequate protection of soil erosion into the wetlands? I stopped by town hall. They said there will be a silt screen. How deep will that be buried? And how long will it hold up to protect this area?
Thank you. And perhaps, Mr. Preddy, can you address those concerns?
So there is typical erosion control shown on the site here. We have erosion control on silt fence shown on this portion over here, and then at the back of the yard, there's sort of a retaining wall here. So this part of the yard is a little higher, so we have it along there too. The silt fence is typically, the detail for the silt fence is on the other sheet. I mean, the bottom of the fence is usually buried about a foot into the ground. Silt fence does need to be inspected and maintained after any kind of major storm event. So as long as somebody's watching, it should last through the duration of the project. But back here, this is very flat right here, so I don't expect that there's a big potential. Again, this is a different plateau, so that's why we have it split. But
Is that the existing location for the septic that it's at now? Are you doing anything to that, or is that?
no, there's city sewer here. This is
Oh, is that for drain?
for roof drainage.
Okay.
Yeah, we were asked to do that when we were at the wetland level.
Thank you, Ms. Preddy. Are there other questions, comments from the public? Here.
Just as
Yes.
I did get a call from the neighbor on this side, Mr. Cotton, he seemed to be, he just had a couple questions, but he seemed to be generally okay with the project. But I think he's happy that this is moving away from his property
Trees
line.
coming
So
down?
Trees a nuisance for both of them, I guess.
Great. Okay, thank you, Ms. Preddy.
Thank you.
So anything else, Mr. Preddy? Any other questions for Mr. Preddy? Okay, then we can close this matter as a public hearing, and this is probably something we can take up in a little bit. brings into item number 6 on our agenda, and that is Paul Santa Barbara, applicant RC Enterprises LLC owner, 57 East Industrial Road, special exception container storage and site plan for the sale and distribution of fuel oil. And Mr. Preddy, are you representing the applicant in this application?
I am. Jim Preddy again, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street. Yeah, we did this building originally back in 2007. I think it was approved. This single building, it was originally, so there, it sounds like in the staff report there may be a little bit of confusion, but so this site by itself, 57, was approved originally in 2007. I don't know if you recall, a brewery was going to go in here originally. That didn't pan out, and then we were back for another special exception for the gym that has been in there, and now we were looking. And then there's a coastal. What's this called? Coastal Consulting in the back. He's staying. Mr. Santa Barbara will be occupying the front portion of the building. There aren't any site changes with the exception of a fenced-in area here to store empty containers, basically bulk waste dumpsters. And then right up against the building is a small retaining wall that allows to what was at one point a loading dock door. The retaining wall allows to be able to drive in. They need to move it over so both overhead doors are accessible. The business that it's moving in there as part of this application is Purple Fuels. He has a shirt on. They're going to use the office for sales, scheduling, that sort of thing, and their delivery trucks will be stored inside. There is not any proposed bulk storage of any petroleum products here. No, there's mention of no 10,000 gallon tanks, and or nothing greater than 10,000 gallon tanks, and that may someday in the future become a different application. But as of now, there isn't any plans for bulk storage on this property. It's just for the business for the fuel oil delivery in the containers. Again. Because of the fencing that we're putting in for dumpsters, we added some screening on this end that's visible from the road. This is an existing paved area, so no excavating really needs to take place there for that. There was a comment about the original landscaping plan. And the reason I said there might have been some confusion because I was looking at the dates, and there has been a couple applications that combine both lots, but that no longer is the plan. We're just focusing on the one lot. The original landscape plan, which I have here, this was the original landscape plan that was approved for the building, and then reapproved when we came back for other special exceptions. I'd actually gone out there today. It looks like for the most part it's in there except for a couple of trees that flank the entrance. And then there's a couple that look a little sad, but for the most part it's there. And I've already talked to the owner and he said he'd put those trees in that are missing. The building lighting that was approved at the time is on the building and we're not changing any of that. So that's why we're here today.
Thank you, Mr. Preddy. Questions from commission members?
Do the standards of the landscape plan that were approved previously still apply?
Yes, and we added a condition to make sure all the conditions of the previous approval remain in full effect, and then one additional stating any proposed changes to the landscaping plan will need to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission or the town planner.
Thanks, Evan. And there are other parts, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want to summarize further parts of?
Sure. They are here today because the change of use, the first use is portable storage containers, which requires a special exception, and the second is commercial storage, sale, and distribution of fuel, which requires a site plan approval. I think Mr. Preddy cleared up our questions about what the use would be. He also submitted a statement of use this afternoon. Each of you has that, but if you'd like me to go over it. They satisfy the bulk requirements of the I-2 district, along with the parking requirements, and based on the rest of the application materials, they appear to satisfy the special exception criteria. Staff recommends one finding, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below. The commission finds that the proposed use of the property is consistent with section 9.8F. I read these off before, but I'll just repeat them. We have 3 conditions. Number 1, the conditions of the previous approval shall remain in full force and effect. Any proposed changes to the landscaping will need to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commissioner or the Town Planner. And the 3rd one is the commercial storage, sale, distribution of fuel, bottled gas, and any other petroleum products in tanks of excess of 10,000 gallons is not allowed.
Thank you, Evan.
Evan, I have one question on condition 8. You just say the special exception criteria are generally satisfied, or I sort of hate vague language. It's either satisfied or not in my mind.
Sure, that's sort of some boilerplate language we typically use in our staff reports, but I'm safe in saying that they satisfy the requirements of section 9.8F.
Thank you, Evan. Yeah, so some of the special permit criteria are very subjective. So I think there's some fudge room, harmony with the neighborhood or. Any further questions, comments from commission members? Then we'll open up the public. Any member of the public wish to comment on this item? One more time, any member of the public wish to comment? Hearing none, Ms. Preddy, any further comments?
No, just I guess to summarize, it's, it's a change of use for an existing building, and I think the only confusion with the bulk storage was it's the same line number in the table of uses, so it kind of gets lumped in, but other than that, again, very minimal changes to the site, and we're going to address the deficient landscaping. So.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mr. Preddy.
Thank you.
We'll close this matter as a public hearing. Again, this is something I think we can take up in a little bit. Brings us then to item number 7, David Plumney, Michael Balzano, 540 East Main Street, Units 10 and 11, special exception for indoor recreation. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
Hi.
This isn't anything too fancy, but I want to give you guys an idea of who we are. I'd rather not use the mic, probably.
I think you have to for the TV.
Otherwise, the cable television, which we're broadcast through, won't pick it up.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
All right, that's okay. Thank you.
Sorry to confuse you.
All right, it's a little lopsided, but that's the best I can do right now. I'm Dave Plumet. I own a gym in town. It's called Shoreline Athletics. We've been in town for about 12 years. I put some bullet points up here on there for you. It was also in the description that I submitted in the package for the P&Z package. Basically, we are considered a small boutique gym. Actually, that's not the one I want to start it with. We'll start with that. We're a minority-owned gym, meaning we were owned by women and myself. I'm a Hispanic male. We've been in business for 12 years in Branford. This is our 4th location, and all around the same area, okay? We have been involved in community initiatives, nonprofits. We sponsor the Branford Road Race. We're really a part of the local community. That's our thing. That's personally my passion. Before that, I worked for the Guilford Savings Bank here in Branford. We serve people of all ages and types and athletic backgrounds. Our youngest client is 13. Our oldest client is currently 75. They all work out in a group setting. It's a pretty cool experience to actually watch. So, we network with all sorts of people in the medical field, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists, and we have a nice network in town. We're able to help people get them healthy and moving. Okay, a little bit about our business. Again, we're considered a small boutique gym. What that looks like, if you haven't been to a gym like this, we have a small group that's coached by 1 or 2 trainers. The classes are led throughout the entire, call it 45-minute session. If you've taken a yoga class, if you've taken a boot camp class, if you've gone to a strength and conditioning type of facility, it's kind of like all that in one. We use minimal equipment, dumbbells, kettlebells, sometimes a rower, sometimes a bike, sometimes we've run. We do burpees, pull-ups, sit-ups, air squats, things of that nature. But we do it in a circuit-style fashion to make it interesting, to get the biggest bang out of your buck and keep people healthy, okay? Average class size is, call it 12 to 15 people. I think that's critical for the experience. You don't want them too big, the quality goes down. You don't want them too small because it takes away from the energy. That seems to be our sweet spot. That's what we're sticking with, okay? Currently, we have 6 classes on the schedule daily, generally outside retail hours, so 2 early morning, 2 in the evening, call it 4:30 and 5:30, and 1 at 9 and 1 at 12. Our busiest time slots are 5 and 6 a.m., 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. If for some reason we were to have an influx in membership, we'd add a couple classes or clap the facility itself in terms of the number of members. Okay. I think that was my spiel. I'd like to answer any questions you have for me, and kind of go from there.
Great, thank you. Is it Mr. Plumy? Is that correct?
It's Plume, I believe.
Plume,
yeah,
okay.
It's fancy.
Thank you. I understand this is a change of use, and Evan has prepared the staff report on this, or what? We can ask him to review that with us.
Yeah, like Chairman Andre just said, this application for a special exception, change the use from a retail cabinet, showroom, and workspace to an indoor recreation facility. They meet the requirements of the IG2 district. They have not submitted a lighting or landscaping plan, but they do not propose any changes to the site. The indoor recreation use is not included in the off-street parking table. However, the commission has established a requirement of 1 space per 175 square feet for indoor recreation uses. Based on the square footage of the gross interior floor area, 19 spaces would be required, and the previous use required 13 spaces. This commercial condominium was approved in 1987. They had 157 spaces required, and they provide 172 spaces. No earth disturbances proposed, and based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are satisfied. Staff recommends one finding, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below. The proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria. And one condition, prior to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance or a certificate of occupancy, the following should be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner. And this is our standard for any additional lighting on site must be in compliance with the Branford zoning regulations.
And are they adding any lighting? I don't think he's.
No, I don't believe so. No changes to the site plan are proposed.
Questions for the applicant from anyone?
Straightforward.
Yep. Sounds like a nice use. Could all use it, right?
Should use it?
Sure. Let's open up the public. Any member of the public wish to comment? One more time, any member of the public wish to comment? Hearing none. Any further comments from the applicant?
I was hoping to get a decision today. We're in a bit of a pinch, and so.
Sure. Okay.
So that's it.
Absolutely. I think it's something we can take up in a little bit after we complete our public hearings. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our public hearings. We have a number of minutes to review and act on. The first is the minutes, and we have copies here, the minutes for the March 4th, 2021. And who's voting? We're sure. I know John is out, and
Well, for the minutes, I think even if you weren't at the meeting, I believe.
Yeah, I think you can
still vote.
Right.
They're not comfortable, but they can.
But who's up for an alternate?
Who was next up? Probably, I think you voted last time? No, I think last 2 weeks ago, I think Fred voted.
Okay, either Paul or Massimo, I don't know who's it.
Remember Paul, because frankly, I don't remember. I did vote in the last week.
Okay, so Massimo's up, okay. Okay, so if you looked at the minutes, someone make a motion to approve the March 4th revised minutes.
So moved on March 4th.
Motion made to approve by Joe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All in favor? Massimo, I think you're on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. March 4th meeting minutes are approved. Second one is the April 15th revised minutes. Someone may make an appropriate motion for those minutes.
So moved.
Motion made to approve minutes by Mr. Chadwick. And is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vayuso. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. And our last set of minutes, I think that we're ready to act on is our June 3rd revised minutes. Is that correct? Is there a motion made to approve those?
So moved on June 3rd.
Motion made to approve by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the June 3rd meeting minutes, and we're not ready to approve the July ones. That's correct, Harry? Correct. Okay, so let's go back to our public hearing items. First one is item number 5. That's the special exception for grading, 173 Hotchkiss Grove Road, 100 feet within a wetland. And I believe, Evan, you had for the recommendation for that. I believe you had 2 conditions. Is that...
Correct. Condition number 1, prior to the start of construction, erosion control measures shall be installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer and maintained throughout the project. Number 2, dust control measures shall be provided as necessary at the discretion of the zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, and it appeared to comply with the regulations. So I don't know if someone want to make a motion to approve the application with the 2 conditions as recommended by staff.
I'll make a motion as presented.
Motion to approve made by Marcy with the 2 conditions. Is there a second?
Awesome.
Second, Massimo. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Unanimous. So that application's approved. Brings us into item number 6. This is the 57 East Industrial Road special exception for the container storage and site plan for the sale and distribution of fuel oil. And again, I believe, Evan, you had 3 conditions on this one. Is that correct?
Yes, our first is the conditions of the previous approval granted on March 18th, 2020 shall remain in full force and effect until their completion. Number 2, any proposed changes to the landscaping plan from March 18th, 2020, special exception modification will need to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission or the town planner. And number 3, the commercial storage, sale, and distribution of fuel, bottled gas, and any other petroleum products in tanks in excess of 10,000 gallons is not allowed.
All right, so those are 3 conditions, and you also suggested a finding of compliance. Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Subject to compliance with the conditions listed below, the commission finds, based on the testimony and application materials presented, that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria per section 9.8F.
Okay. Any comments or discussions about this? Appears to be complying with the regulations. The condition sort of guarantees that they don't have excess fuel storage. I think there's a 10,000 gallon limit and they're living with that. And so if that's okay with everyone, someone make a motion to approve the application with the finding and 3 conditions as outlined by Evan.
So moved on that application.
Motion made to approve by Joe Vayuso. Is there a second?
You push the button.
I'll second.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Applications passed. Congratulations. And that brings us into item number 7, and this is the indoor recreation use that we just had presented to us. And Evan, I think you also, think, what was the condition on that, the recommended condition on that one?
We have one finding, subject to compliance with the conditions listed below. The commission finds, based on the testimony and application materials presented, that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria per section 9.8F. And our one condition is prior to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance or the zoning issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the following should be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner or his designee. Any additional lighting on site must be in compliance with the town of Branford zoning regulations. You want me to read the entire condition?
Go ahead, why not? Why don't you?
Okay.
For the record, right?
Just might suggest that I add the word, this one, right? That hasn't been revised.
Yeah.
So it's right at the beginning of it, to reduce glare, all new fixtures.
Sure.
Just in case there's anything that was approved prior in existence.
Sure.
I think it's a pretty large complex.
Correct.
So rather than have them try to retrofit things that might be not in compliance, this is a very tiny portion of it, so.
Gotcha.
Sure.
To reduce glare, all new fixtures shall be demonstrated to meet the IES full cutoff definition unless they are emergency lights or very low accent lights, less than 900 lumen output, less than an incandescent 100 watt bulb. Fixed, not adjustable arm mount shall be used for all fixtures. The correlated color temperature of the light source for all exterior fixtures, either building or pole mounted, shall be equal to or less than 3,000 degrees Kelvin. Information on all building mounting lights shall be provided, including cut sheets with all model choices indicated and updated photometric plans, including any updated schedule providing information on the different types of fixture and the surface light level projections in foot candles that are in compliance with the requirements of the zoning regulations. Non-conforming fixtures shall be removed or replaced with non-conforming fixtures.
Thank you, Evan. Application appears to be in compliance with the regulations. It's appropriate use. You can get your caffeine at Willoughby's and then get caffeinated and go over and do a rigorous workout. So,
Or vice versa.
So does someone want to make a motion to approve the application with the proposed findings and conditions as Evan just read?
So moved.
Motion made by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Second.
Massimo seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Application's approved. Congratulations. Good luck. That brings us then to our old business. And item number 1 of our old business, Amy Allen, Rents Development LLC. This is 365 East Main Street, site plan for fast food restaurant. Is this application? Okay. My understanding is this application been withdrawn, or I understand there's been some issues with
this is 365 East Main Street. It has not been withdrawn. At this point, the owner did not sign the application form. And apparently the fee is an attempt to pay it, but is not actually paid. So we have an incomplete application at this point, and staff is recommending denial without prejudice.
Okay. Everyone understands, so this is an application for a restaurant use at this location.
Thank you.
Our application forms require that the owner consent to it. I guess this was a proposed tenant, and the tenant apparently hasn't, maybe they don't have a lease yet or something, but anyway, the owner never signed off on it, and the check bounced. So I guess the proposal is denial without prejudice because the application is incomplete, that it doesn't have the owner's consent and or the application fee.
Yeah, and the applicant's aware that the recommendation's being made for that and has not really objected to it, as I understand, at this point. I think they're looking at other sites, frankly, as well.
Okay, so it's not like there's surprise.
It's more than fast food. I think it's...
It was a mix between retail of prepared health food products and then a juice bar.
So does someone want to make a motion to deny without prejudice on the ground that the application is incomplete?
So move on that application.
Okay, motion made to deny without prejudice because of incompleteness by Joe. Is there a second?
So second.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, application is denied. That motion is passed and the application is denied. Brings us to item number 2, which is Elaine Johnson, GTR LLC, 116 Monterey Street, site plan for a retail gift shop. And I understand that the town center has not acted on this yet, but
Yeah, unfortunately, they did not have a quorum at their meeting last week. There is a staff report, Evan prepared, recommending approval, but we'll have to wait until they do meet and provide the recommendation to the commission. That is expected to happen next Friday. So they have a meeting set up for Friday morning. And if you recall, we had a fallback date for a meeting, special meeting of the commission. I think we said the 29th, and then Michelle went back and couldn't get a room, so we moved it up one more day. So the 28th is the day we're looking at. So if that works, then that would allow them to go ahead before the end of the month. So I think that's what we're going to have to do to comply with the regulations.
so I think we just need a quorum to make a meeting on the 28th. That's what we'll be looking for.
That's fine.
So, okay, so then we'll table this item here.
Yeah.
Brings us to item number 3, which is ALMR LLC for Elm Road, special exception modification, and we have a public hearing, I believe, scheduled for September 2nd on that. Correct, Harry?
That's correct.
So that brings us to new business. Item number 1, Leopoldo Otero, Jasmine Vargas, 11 Circle Drive, special exception accessory apartment, and we need to schedule a public hearing for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we still have the standing, but we're looking at the 2nd of September for that one. It's pretty straightforward, I think, so.
Okay, so probably likely schedule that one for our September 2nd meeting. Any other new business, Harry?
We did receive another application for 30 Wakefield, actually this morning. So it's not technically accepted for the record at this meeting because it wouldn't have needed to be received yesterday to just meet the deadline. So we will, but it's pretty straightforward. It's just a small piece of connection to a dock that is proposed for a permit from DEP, and it's within the coastal jurisdiction area. It's right on the shore, so it needs a coastal site plan, we believe. It's possible it's exempt. We're going to look at that, but we'll probably put it on the meeting on the 28th since we're having one and just get it out of the way.
Okay, so if that's not exempt, then we'll probably consider that. Sort of small line.
Yeah, that's good. Harry, on the 28th, what's the main application we're going to be reviewing?
It's just a conversion, change of use from an office to a retail gift shop.
No,
Is that
there
the
was
only
one that
thing on
was
the agenda?
specifically.
Buckley, I think.
Oh, Buckley is gone.
Buckley was withdrawn.
Buckley's gone, yeah.
Why are we having the meeting?
Yeah, it should be a short meeting.
It should be a very short meeting, yeah.
Quickly, you can't make it now, right? Right. So it should be a short meeting. Yeah, so.
So everything else is essentially cleaned up?
Pretty much, actually, yeah. So in pretty good shape for a break.
That brings us into other business. So, Gary, what do you have for your planner's report?
Let's see. Well, just reiterate that we're pretty good shape in terms of the applications, and I hate the numbers drop down a little bit, so it's fairly manageable at this point. We'll see what September brings. As was mentioned, Buckley Road is apparently going to be resubmitted, so probably look at hearing that, I would imagine, at the earliest, the second meeting in September. But we can talk about that on, I probably have to do that in consultation with the chair because we'd have to have the newspaper notice in prior to the meeting on the 2nd, assuming they resubmit fairly quickly, but I don't know whether they're going to or not. Behind the scenes, I am slowly working on the affordable housing plan. We are moving forward with getting the contract and probably getting a kickoff meeting and slowly getting a committee together to oversee it. So there will be some work done in August on that, and it'll kick in full gear in the fall. There's a kickoff meeting for the regional affordable housing plan. I think it's next week. So I'll attend that. It's a Zoom meeting, and probably invite our consultant as well to see if he can attend it. Anything else you want to add at this point? I think we're just looking forward to the break to catch up, quite frankly, with new staff. So things are starting to slowly get back into a more predictable pattern with people, acquiring expertise. Evan's, been here 5-6 months now. So we're looking forward to trying to tackle some outstanding issues and concerns. We do have a very experienced temporary zoning enforcement officer on board, John Rusatsky, who I think I mentioned before. I'm hoping to transition him out from doing inspections and sort of working in tandem with our brand new zoning officer, Dylan Willett, and move him into helping us go to a more digital, computerized basis and hopefully more user-friendly, customer-driven way to do business with zoning permits. The building permit side's already on that. With zoning permit related to building permit, the zoning officer uses that system. We're also looking at other functionality in that computer software to help us with regular P&Z applications. How
does that software affect the applicant or the end user? I mean, is it just internal for your record keeping, or is it something that the applicant can use to submit application?
It can be. We're going to explore that. Actually, Mr. Rusatsky worked with a different software package in Stratford where the applicant could submit information themselves, which I think is probably better for all concerned, including our office staff. It might be more efficient. So we're going to be looking at that and whether our existing program has that functionality. So that's something I'm hoping to have happen over the course of probably the next fiscal year through next June. But it's going to take a little while.
I'm just wondering if we're going to, at some point, try to go digital with drawing submissions so that we can save paper and the whole system.
That's the goal. That is really the goal. And we had an effort underway, which we fell by the wayside with all the staffing changes and a lot of the, things that have happened in my tenure. But we're hoping to get back to, we have got digital submittals, and with COVID, that really did drive us into scanning every document in the file. So we've got all those records now, and for those applications, we can begin to vaporize the paper basically and keep the digital records solely. I mean, it helps to have the full-size plans, and we can narrow a lot of these files down. And frankly, we're drowning in paper. We want to get away from that. So that's one of the goals of having John on board, was to assist us in that effort, and frankly, provide some backup for the CEO, because it's been a pretty, that person's pretty flat out, and can be a very stressful job. So particularly with having that person who has had a lot of experience in doing that job, it's worked out pretty well so far.
How long do you legally have to hold on to? I know with real estate you have to hold on for 7 years.
I want to say 7 years, yeah. We do hold on for things longer. Most recently, I got a request for someone wanted to look at the files of the landing. You may recall that was mentioned in part of the landing project, Simple Creek. I can't remember the name of the road. It's down South Monterey, almost as far as the stand on the right. That was a pretty, I believe, contentious project in its day, which goes back to the mid-90s, I believe, and it was submitted first. Yeah. So you guys that have been around longer might know about that one. That was mentioned as an example of open space that was dedicated, part of it below mean high water in the recent Buckley Road application. So someone wanted to go through that file. We have most of the file. So that's one reason we keep some of these things is people do request, the information. And I've gone back to some of the older developments where they've changed landscaping and things like that, and we've had the paper files and be able to, go back,
trying to scan
use
those
as resources. Yeah, once we scan it, we can print it out, but the scanning, you do lose something with the files. Once they're scanned and then they're printed out again, you lose some detail because our scanner's not that great. So I think keeping the plans and losing a lot of the documents would be one way we could narrow down a lot of the files. And
just even moving forward with submitting everything digitally so you don't have to keep it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Are you shredding?
We don't shred much because frankly, we're keeping the documents at this point because we have it we have no great system to have it in a digital format. But that's where we're hoping to go, and we really need to go there. So this will be an effort to start that up again. So it's a little more, sorry for the long-winded report, but, that's,
Over early today.
there's that. And, at this time of year, I look at my to-do list I haven't been able to get to because I don't have, everything to assemble for our meetings for, a month or so. So it's,
What's the latest with the accessory apartments? Was that approved?
that was approved, and we have an item coming right up next to talk about that.
Oh, tonight?
Yeah, recent legislation, so yeah.
Yeah, we'll just, anything else?
Segue right into that if you want.
Segue.
Yeah, it's a nice segue.
That's right. So you're done with planner's work?
I'm all done, yeah.
Okay, we're,
I have one item.
yes.
Town engineer John Hefferly asked
thank
that
you.
we mention there will be an open house for our Main Street reconstruction project. It will be on the green next Thursday, July 22nd, from 4:30 to 6:30. There will be representatives from the design team, the engineering department, to answer any questions anybody might have, and there will also be music on the green that night.
And what is the project and who's the engineer?
In a nutshell.
What was the date again? So we'll put 'em-
Oh, go ahead, the date.
July 22nd, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., not a.m.
So in general, my understanding is they're reconstructing Main Street from where South Main Street branches off all the way down to about G's End. There are still, I think, rails from the trolley system in the road. The road itself there's been some settling around drainage. There's all kinds of underground issues that need to be resolved. You may have observed that I think the gas company went through and replaced some of their lines recently throughout town center.
They're doing it now.
Yeah, so that was done before this project got underway, so it was, kind of organized that way. They're gonna go and, I understand, redo the drainage. They're gonna probably put some low-impact development techniques as part of that package. Rework the pavers on the sidewalk, because some of those are uneven, and generally do a facelift for everything that's flat. They're looking at enhanced crosswalks, I believe, as well. And there's a bunch of other things they were considering in the design that I don't think they've come to a conclusion about how they're going to address them. But they'll have more information at the event, and I encourage people to go. And at some
The
engineer?
I missed that, sorry.
John Hefferly is our,
No, the consultant engineer?
Beta Group, I believe. So, did it say on the email? I think he said it.
No, your guess would be better.
I think it's Beta Group. Yeah.
Where's this going to be, at Town Hall?
Out in the green?
Yeah, on the green.
On the green?
Yeah, just before the music starts.
This is South Main Street?
No, it's Main Street, right along the green. Yeah, all the way and down the hill to G's End and back starting at the turnoff of South Main Street. So all the town-owned part.
Sort of the same area that was done when they put in pavers? That's where
Pretty much. I don't think they're going to take it as far this way because that's the state highway, so.
Are they going to disturb any of the trees over there?
There is a plan to, and I don't know what the actual status of it is, to kind of replant some of those trees. Some of them have died off. They're basically, bottler pears, I think.
Well, they're Branford Calvary pears that were put in, and they were starting to get to an age where they're a weak-wooded tree.
Yeah.
So they were starting to come down, and I know some of them were taken down a few years ago, but I noticed that there seems to be an inconsistent replacement of different trees, and I would just hope that, I don't know the Beta Group, but that there's a
They have a landscape architect. We talked about that in the review.
Because oftentimes, they can carry a little bit more on the design detailing and the planting.
Yeah, and there was a preliminary plan, but I think they're going to review that. That was done by, I think, Diana Ross when she was the tree warden, and work that out with the town center review board in the first selectman's office. And the idea, I think, was to mix up the different kinds of trees and have some probably more significant trees at the corners of the streets, but you have to be really careful because of what's underground. So we're going to get a much better idea what is underground.
Well, I know Skylar was a landscape architect on that board, so hopefully he had input.
Yeah, he did.
They will be doing, the landscaping still will be.
I don't know if it's going to go beyond the design. They may just come up with a design. I don't know if there's money in the budget to actually plant the trees or not. I just don't know that for a fact.
You know, and even position the trees, I think, are important.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Positioning of them sometimes, I mean, it's disruptive to the signage on some buildings.
Yeah.
I love the trees, so I really do want them there. I just think they need to be not covering people's storefronts.
It's difficult, but I think some of that is the species selected, and
the one in front of my new shop, it's going into the shop, and it's you know, and
some of it's maintenance of the trees, and some of it is the type of tree that's put in.
Columnar trees are probably really appropriate. You could do more of them in places because they're not going to have as broad a crowd. But I don't know I don't know enough about the history since, Judy Gott, I guess, was involved in the original project.
It goes back to like the 80s.
So
take in consideration,
nice to see it.
Not blocking the signage of the businesses.
Yeah.
Because that does create a little bit of a issue.
I want to say we touched base with a retail group, and I'm not sure that there was an informal group meeting. I don't know if that's going to start up again when we get a part-time.
How about traffic calming? Are they addressing that?
They are addressing that. That's part of their mission as well. There was actually a state law change that allows towns to now drop the speed limit as low as 20 miles per hour in town centers where it's congested. So I don't know whether town wants to take advantage of that or not, but that's something new. But they're going to look at particularly the little intersection where Town Hall Drive comes out, and can't remember is it Tainter? It's not Tainter. The one that goes down on the other side of the Congregational Church.
That cuts through from the Congregational Church?
Yeah, down to Church
But that's
Street.
one way, I think, right?
That's one way, but they have that intersection right on Main Street where you've got people use it as kind of a turnaround, and it's very wide.
Yes.
Very difficult. Yeah. So they're going to look at that.
I just look at the picture and, I see where they've taken out the pavers from the crosswalk and try to paint the asphalt, and it's just...
That's
just not as,
and it's very slippery
as it
paint.
used to
Actually,
be
I almost slipped and cracked my head open because it was wet one day because I don't use the crosswalk.
Yeah,
It does get slippery.
Yeah.
It really does.
and I'd almost like to see a speed hump or something.
Speed humps are nice.
The town's been kind of not supportive of those, with the exception, I think, down near Branford Point. There's a couple right by the park entrance there, but I don't.
Hump, not bump.
Hump and bump, both bad. There's the hump part of it, I guess. But, that's...
The lumps.
It's been mentioned, I believe, to the traffic group a couple of times, on various streets, that something like that. I mean, I think a hump is very workable, even with the plows. But the plows is really the objection, I think, at this point.
There's just a lot of little kids over there on the green with ice cream shops. And let me tell you, I'm very cautious driving. It's actually one of my worst fears.
Pedestrians,
and as non-residents, they, when people come in from other towns, they don't even really realize the crosswalks are there. I mean, they know they're there, but they're not as conscious, when you don't know exactly where they are.
They don't know where they're going, and they're looking for their destination.
Right. And I gotta tell you, it's really that scary. I mean, it would be nice to see that traffic just be a little safer for the children.
I would come and I would talk to them, and as somebody who has a business on it, I would express your opinion, Massimo. Really,
it's on Tuesday. That's perfect for me.
Yeah, good.
If it's cloudy.
Yeah, I think, as far as I understand it, the town is. They decided to go a little further with the design element and spend some more money on it. So I was involved in selecting the consultant, and they assembled a pretty good team. Seem to have covered a lot of different viewpoints, landscape architecture, engineering. They seem to have hit all the bases, what's needed. So, but they're looking for input. So.
Thursdays is such a bad day for me, but
well, even if you wrote something, I mean, whatever, we can get you involved. So
I would like to.
I'll mention that to town engineer.
So that's next
Maybe
Thursday.
you can preview, go in and just talk to the town chair and preview the drawings.
Yeah, just come in the office sometime. Yeah.
Excellent.
So if you want to switch over to legislation,
cover item number 2.
Let's see. I'm going to leave cannabis to last. Some of the big things I've got on my list here, and then hopefully I'm not missing anything. Starting off with the accessory dwelling units, accessory apartments. There is a provision that was discussed the last meeting that would otherwise, if we don't do anything as a town, allow them as of right everywhere a single-family house is allowed without a special exception approval process. And I don't believe there would be the ability of the commission to require that they be deed restricted for affordable housing. So we'd be losing those controls. I don't know if there's any, you would come along with one parking space, because they're actually also, my second part is, there is a provision in state law that would actually create, if you don't do anything about it, parking standards for every town, which are close to what we've got, but they're a little different. And so you get one space for the accessory apartment. There is an opt-out provision, but let me go back. The actual statute itself becomes effective January 1st. If you have existing regulations, they stay in effect good through the following January 1st, 2023, I believe. Starting on, you have opt-out provisions, so you have until January 1st, 2023 also to opt out, which requires the commission to hold a public hearing and vote to opt out, and then send that action to the legislative body of the town. I believe they need to also take a 2/3 vote for the opt-out provision to become effective. If you don't do it by January 1st, 2023, you're stuck with it, unless they change the statute at the state level. So we got some time, but
Let's do it now.
Yeah.
I just started up. I was wondering if you wanted me to look into starting it up.
Well, I would just want to qualify it. I wouldn't want to see
Well, one thing I don't understand.
4 or 5 zone and less opposed to it because they're bigger lots. And
Yeah, that's the thing. It stops you from being able to pick and choose. I'm not sure if you opt out whether you can go back and have regulations like we already have currently, or not. It's just not clear to me. So we could seek the opinion of town council about that, which I think might possibly influence what you want to do. So you could possibly opt out and then go back and do what we're doing now. But I don't know.
Yeah, that was, if you opt out, I assume our current regulations would stay in place, right?
It would kick in again, I would think, or something similar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good argument for that. I just don't know what the framers of it intended either, how that was going to be interpreted.
I don't know how they could make something mandatory like that when there's always an exception to the rule, especially that rule. I mean, you got so many small homes that have no property whatsoever.
Yeah.
To add another apartment, well, you know, it just doesn't make sense, especially in this town and other towns with these small little, call them summer homes.
Yeah, beach communities and
30s and 40s, whatever, that not being converted to full-time winterized homes.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would have to stay within the boundaries, correct? I mean, the boundaries would still matter. I mean, you couldn't just break those laws, correct? I mean,
Well, I have to go back and look at it. I can't even remember it off the top of my head whether it's just an existing house or you can actually have it like you can now in an accessory building, or build a new accessory building and have an accessory dwelling unit in a new garage or something,
Yeah.
or a reconstructed garage.
I think that
I can't remember.
what would typically happen is you've got a small lot that might be in an R1 and an R2 zone and it has a detached garage because of the era it was built in, and someone says, oh, let me repurpose the garage as an accessory apartment, but I mean, maybe you could do it as a tiny house because that's a huge norm, but, they might be already not conforming to the setbacks. Or how does that fit with, accessory buildings that are 200 square feet that can be within 5 feet of the property line that aren't,
Yeah. It can be very tricky.
still as a town, other towns could say, yes, I want to do it, or are they going to make it mandatory for us to just say, yes, we have to?
It's mandatory unless you opt out. So you have to follow the provisions to opt out.
Can we adjust, like, say we say, okay, we want for sustainability purposes to promote, the tiny house movement where people can have a small accessory of a very small size. But can we then change other regulations to say if it's for a habitable use, has to conform to setbacks? Like that accessory structure has to conform to setbacks and not just be 5 feet off the...
I think it's pretty prescriptive in terms of what it requires you to allow. But I'm going to go through it.
We could opt out, we could also amend our current regulations. If we opt out, I think we're back to what we have now.
Okay.
And I think you're saying maybe we should look at what we have now and,
time to make improvements or adjustments if we can.
That's okay, adjustments are fine, you know,
Yeah.
because there's some situations where there's just no room for parking or room for any more activity in that neighborhood, or that block.
100%, I get it. I don't even understand why they would even come up with.
I don't understand why either.
Well, it's
I
macro,
understand
not
what
micro.
There was a big, it was very effective. There was a group called Desegregate Connecticut that did a very ambitious lobbying campaign for, it was sort of the emphasis, the emphasis was on affordable housing and the idea of making housing more affordable. One way to make housing more affordable is supply. Just increase the supply, and that helps people. So the accessory apartments seem to be a wider, the desegregate kinetic affordable housing folks, the home builders are good for it. Private property people are kind of in favor of it. So it kind of got through, but even that, and the people against it are, why is the state telling the local zoning how to run our towns? We can design that. So there's always that opposition, the home rule, type. And so that was where the opt-out came from. But that was a number of things. There are other statutory changes, and this was one of the ones that came out of that. Part of it, in my mind, was addressing, we allow accessory apartments by special permit. In my mind, what that does is you got to notify your neighbor and, see if they have any objections. And maybe, you can put some landscaping in or something, because you're adding a second dwelling. You're making, single family house and whatever.
And see if they meet the requirements of parking and so on. And it goes on and on.
Yeah. So
and it's where the zones that are larger lots where there's more land to work with, and the parking can be on the property, and you're not impacting as easily adjoining properties.
So, and this makes it all as of right, that you don't have a special permit, you don't have discretion. I can't think of one we've ever denied. We've had this in place since the mid-90s.
Well, usually when they reach us, they're pretty much in compliance already.
They are in compliance. You either get a variance or they're
something.
and most of them just comply with the regs, and we approve it. And they've talked with their neighbors beforehand, and they're all in favor, and that's the way it should be. I kind of like, that's what I like about it. They didn't like special permits because they think that's just discretionary. That just allows you to have subjective reasons for denying things.
Well,
that was, and I think
just in my mind, it's an open house situation.
Yeah, I think it's good to allow your neighbors to input, and this would make it as the right way to do it.
In some jurisdictions, the special permit might have been used that way too.
Yeah, it may have. I don't think that's been a problem here. I can't think of one. I can't think of any big fights about accessory apartments.
I would rather have...
We had an interior lot fight, but not an accessory apartment.
I'd rather have us be in control of the permitting if possible. I just think it makes for a better amicable relationship with all neighbors.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I think that there's an open question in my mind. Right now we allow an R3, R4, R5. We don't allow an R1 and R2. And in my mind, should we? Or is maybe, that's 4,000, which is tiny. So maybe the answer is no.
Well, R1 is 6,000.
R1 is, 6,000 and 4,000.
And the second one is no, we changed it to 6,000 because of...
some of the existing lots are 4, so there are smaller lots,
Right, but I'm saying for a second unit, like I'm thinking of a second housing
right,
unit.
We made a special permit.
You would need more square footage.
Not under the new law.
But that's, well, my fear with the new law is just that it's too general and there's too many unique scenarios, and
I totally agree.
I'm not opposed to accessory apartments whatsoever, but I want them to...
we could write our own reg with specific,
Not opposed to it, I just think
requirements.
it's better for us to have the
understand
same...
whether it fits on each particular...
absolutely.
Not opposed to when it fits, where they want to put it.
Absolutely.
Not just everybody across the board is allowed to do it.
Well, think about it. You could
Otherwise, you
take
have
mobile
anarchy.
homes and turn them all into, portable accessory housing, and every lot could, you could park, have transitory things.
There goes my outhouse, though.
I don't know how much land we have zoned R2. You're right, R1 is 6,000, R2 is 4,500.
I don't think we really have any anymore.
Do we have much land that's zoned R2? But
We've got some land down by the shore.
Right.
So I think,
that's
That's R2?
Yeah. Waverly Park, I think that's all R2.
Right.
And then Wilford, the other Wilford down there before you take the turn along the water. I think there's an area on Branford Hills.
Accessory apartments in R2, and it seems to me it makes some sense with a 4,500 square foot lot. Do you really want to allow, you know, it's two dwelling houses?
It'll be cluttered and add to the density of those areas. It doesn't make sense to me.
And many of those areas are flood prone as it is.
So the question, so R2 keep it out, but what about R1? I don't know. 6,000, is that too small too? So anyway, what other legislation you got?
Well, there's the parking, like I mentioned. So the parking also has an opt-out provision. I don't think there's a time limit on that one as far as I can tell at this point. So I think you can opt out whenever you like, I believe, but I can check that. The only real difference is that our regulations require 2.5 spaces for 2+ bedroom units, and the new statute would only allow 2. There doesn't seem to be a provision for guest parking, and I don't think we really don't have a requirement per se. I've worked in other towns where there has been a requirement, and I think it's not a bad idea to think about adding one, because particularly in larger developments where you've got large number of units, given just the law of averages, somebody's going to have a party, you know, maybe every weekend, you know, post-COVID, if we ever get there. And where people park if you've only got exactly the number of parking spaces. Some developments have plenty of parking, others are tighter. You know, it's a judgment call, really. But I think to lose your ability to decide what you think is appropriate may be something you really want to think about. So that one's up there. I don't think that's quite as time sensitive. And then there is a requirement for training of commission members, and there's an initial training requirement that we'll need to all collectively meet by January 2024. So we have some time. They're going to develop some training programs. There was one that came down here, an old colleague of mine who's been doing these around the state, Bruce Hyde, did one, I think, for the ZBA, and I think a couple of commissioners attended that, if I remember right. And there have been, you know, there's the Wesleyan Saturday workshop that a couple people have gone. I know you've gone to that. And so I think there will be opportunities to do that. And I don't believe it's going to be that many hours. I want to say it's only 4 hours if I remember reading the thing correctly. So it's fairly...
like a CE requirement every so many years?
Yeah, sorry?
Was it a yearly 4-hour requirement, or?
I think once it all cranks into motion, there's the initial training, then I think it's going to be yearly, I believe. Yeah.
There'll be continuing ed requirements probably year in, year out. Probably.
Yeah. And there'll be training for ZEOs, and there's also going to be, there is a requirement now that the ZEO will have to be certified by, they call it the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers, and they have a whole testing procedure and training program, and we've routinely sent our ZEOs through that anyway. So it's no real change, but that's formalized now.
And was that an annual, 4 hours annually, or?
For the ZEOs, no, it's just a pretty extensive training program, and actually, I think, Michelle, you've been through it. And
yes,
gotten the designation for the technician. There's 2 levels. And you have to do a case study and pass an exam, and it's pretty intensive.
Very interesting, though.
Yeah.
Back to school.
Back to school.
That's right, back to school.
Are we gonna have to wear masks?
So we're still getting a grip on all this stuff. One other big item is the cannabis legislation. So I am still trying to get a handle on it myself, but I can give you a quickie update on why I stand to date. Is the process set up? The town is allowed under the new law, as far as I read it, and looking at basically summaries of it, it's 300 pages long.
Light reading.
So I'm not going through the whole thing at all. But the town can, through zoning regulation change, prohibit cannabis establishments from opening, prohibit their operation. You can reasonably restrict cannabis establishments' hours and signage. You can restrict their proximity to religious institutions, schools, charitable institutions, hospitals, veterans' homes, or certain military establishments. If you make a zoning change related to cannabis, you've got to report it to the Office of Policy and Management at the state, so they're going to track who does what with the legislation. In the absence of doing anything, adopting any specific provision regarding it, they are to be considered and to be allowed or restricted no differently than other similar uses. For example, retail cannabis would have to be treated the way we treat all other retail uses. Now, just to put it in a little bit of a framework, there is a overall limit on cannabis retailing operations until, I believe it's June 30th, 2024, if I got that right, to one of those per town of 25,000 people. If you're between 25,000 and 50,000, 2 licenses could be issued for a retail, we'll be calling it a dispensary, but it would be just a regular cannabis store.
So Branford would be 2.
Branford could be 2, but there is a provision in there that, for the purposes of the statute, looks at a municipality as the entity that has established zoning regulations. So in Branford, there are 3. There's the town outside of Short Beach and Pine Orchard. Pine Orchard and Short Beach have their own zoning. So for the purpose of the cannabis legislation, we have 3 municipalities as defined by the statute as far as I read it.
So you could have one in Short Beach, one in Pine Orchard.
With Short Beach zoning, I believe there's some retail component. Pine Orchard, I don't think has any retail component. So if you don't have a retail use, I'm sorry?
Is Stony Creek its own?
No, they just have an association and the Architecture Review Board.
How are package stores retail?
There is a limit to them. I think it's 1 per every 2,500 people, if I remember right. Package stores.
So 2,500.
Right. So this would be 1 for every 25,000.
Okay.
And that might change. What the state, after 2024, they could change that and make it, allow more of them.
So do they get treated just like any other retail store, the package stores?
Unless you regulate them differently, I believe.
So then why wouldn't the cannabis be the same?
Well, you can't, but you have to enact the zoning regulation. So you'd have to create a zoning regulation that created a separate category of retail cannabis sales. And then you can do the things the statute's allowing you to do. You can say, we're going to define retail cannabis sales, and then say, nope, you can't have them anywhere. So that's one approach. Or you can define them and say, we're going to restrict them in terms of hours differently than other retail. We're going to control the signage differently than other retail. And you can also say they need to be X feet from all those different uses, religious institutions, schools, or whatever. So you can create a specific set of criteria you'd apply just to them.
I mean, I think it should be, personal opinion, just like a package store is treated.
It's
that's
kind
one way to go.
Showing up in the category of like gun shop or,
I don't think it should be just like any other retail store, but I think it should be, restricted, just like package stores would be restricted from certain retail areas, possibly, if they even are.
I don't know if they even are in town, to tell you the truth. I know where I was in New London, there was, frankly, we were at the limit and people were looking to buy, package store licenses, and there was a lot of concern about alcohol, and there were some specific provisions in the regulations going back to when it was a kind of a Navy town, and, there was, people came down Main Street and Shoreline and creating, kinds of concerns for the community.
That fast food application should wait until a cannabis store opens. Put it right in the store.
I don't have a feel for the public opinion in this town about it. I think Guilford, I remember like the school was very against it and they prohibited it in Guilford. I know they prohibited it in some places. In Bethel, they got rid of it because there was one that was proposed to a neighborhood. People were scared. But here we have a medical marijuana approval. And I don't think there's been a lot of complaints
There've
about it.
been zero issues as far as I know. And they moved and we had a read off from the police department and there was no concerns at that point.
Right, so
I think it was in a good location, it wasn't near residences, it was in an IG2 zone, if I recall, right?
Yeah, it's on the commercial strip.
Right, which, I mean, I raised that with Harry, the possible issue that I don't think we don't allow retail, major retail in IG2. So if I don't know if they could continue, if they could sell retail there.
Unless they pick up and moved, they could move to any of the vacant retail space.
Yeah,
we have a little bit of that.
Possibly move if we did nothing, they could move to a retail place. So, but I don't know. Is there a group out there that feels strongly about it? I at some point, I'm just kind of curious. I sense maybe not, but I don't know.
Stay tuned.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple of interesting provisions. There is a ability for the town to charge a cannabis retailer up to $50,000 for reasonable municipal costs of public safety related to openings such as directing traffic for the first 30 days. I guess I would call that the Krispy Kreme provision. There's been some thought put into this. I don't know, how it really is going to play out, but so, I mean, my question, I guess, is do you want to do anything off the cuff? I know a couple of communities have reacted to this, and for example, Greenwich, I think, just put a regulation, said we're prohibiting it everywhere for now. Or you could do a moratorium, or you could just wait and see. We have gotten some inquiries. One question I have is, would we need to act on some kind of zoning permit application or even a P&Z application for sale of marijuana where that sale is not yet legal? So they're applying to do something that is still illegal until it becomes legal, which won't happen until, I think, January 1st.
I think, we have to sit back and think about, what's truly going on here. I mean, we've all grown up, our ages here, we've all grown up where, my mom thinks that marijuana is like a super drug, like a very bad drug. I mean, that was her mindset. And if she ever seen it on us kids, it was like the worst thing in the whole universe. We were very bad at that point. The mindset's different today. And I think we have to open up our minds to really how bad or how good or, what is this creating, for our society? Is it worse than a package store? Is it worse, is it worse for you than alcohol? Or what are the benefits to it? What are the non-benefits to it? Making it legal, I don't even know if I think alcohol should be illegal, to be honest with you. I think it's way worse than marijuana. But I think eventually most of these drugs are going to become legal and they're going to try to get off the sales of the streets with all the fake product that they're putting it in and killing all our children that are starting to go buy this off the streets. I think it's a much safer thing to have it in a store. These kids are buying marijuana. Men are buying marijuana. I mean, if you talk to many people, I think probably 7 out of 10 people smoke marijuana today. I'd rather see people buy it in the store than having fentanyl in it off the streets. And it's safer. That's my personal opinion. I think the mindset's a little bit different today. I think there's so much more education and it's not as bad for you as you think it is. But there are some things for kids that are under 21 that it is very bad for your frontal, but they're, listen, they're getting it off the streets. I'd rather see people get this in a controlled substance. We're not going to stop people from smoking marijuana in these streets of Branford, and it's very prevalent here. I have a 16-year-old kid, and, he's an athlete, and all his friends are athletes, and, they've all tried it, and they've all bought it from the streets, and that's what scares me more than anything, okay? So I think as a group, we should really open up our minds to what's safer for our children.
Yeah.
We're more them than us.
Right. I think it's going to be legal. The question is going to be legal here, versus the next town or whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, they're
I
gonna
almost-
Massachusetts.
Yeah, they can drive Massachusetts now, but
But you have to be 21, right? Is that what you're saying?
my sense is if we do nothing, it's legal. It'll be just like any other retail. And I'm almost wondering if we should just like have a public hearing, for public input to allow people to give views. Because I don't want to propose anything one way or the other. I'd kind of like to hear, normally we have public hearings on a proposal, but I don't know what to propose. I'm open to hearing what people think.
Could we do a survey, like a townwide survey, and say, how opposed are you to seeing a facility like this within X feet of churches, schools, whatever?
Questionnaire.
Are you opposed to it? We could start to rank it, and I personally, I don't know where I sit on it. I listen to a podcaster named Andrew Huberman, who's a neurobiologist, and I'm trying to recall what he said about marijuana on the brain, and it wasn't necessarily consistent with all the health proponent things that people like to propose, but I won't discard the fact that it can be very useful for some people for medicinal purposes. I don't also discount the fact that teenagers being curious, whether it be for alcohol or marijuana or driving or what have you, these are all things that we need to try to curtail because the brains are developing. But I don't, how to do that from a zoning perspective. I'm not sure how impactful we can be if it's going to be legalized anyway. So how do you qualify it?
Or
limit it.
Yeah, and how do we find out if there's a strong public, you mentioned survey, I don't know if we have the capacity to do that, but we could hold a public hearing, we could publicize it.
Just hear everybody's thoughts.
We're gonna have to put it outside the public hearing.
Nice to have a referendum during an
everybody coming to
election.
that, and most of the marijuana smokers.
Yeah, during an election.
There will be smokers.
You think so? You'll get all the marijuana smokers
That are gonna say yes, and they're gonna lobby yes. And
Well, one thing to think about is, it's happening fairly quickly, even though it's not going to be effective, I think, January 1st, but people are starting to think about applying. And my preliminary understanding of the process of the state is a lottery system. I think the existing dispensary gets to short circuit that and get in and get the opportunity to convert to a retailer as well.
But where they're
They would have
located,
to address the issue you brought up of
Right.
they would have to move to a spot that allowed the retail.
Aren't they allowed 3,000 square feet of retail? They'd have to limit their retail portion of the dispensary. I
That
would
might
imagine.
be,
In the IG2 zone, you're allowed 3,000 square feet.
yes, they are. I don't know if that would be sufficient or not.
Well, but it would give them a.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's
whether it
related
creates a Krispy Kreme effect, I don't know, but.
Right. I don't know if that's related to I have to look at that. Was just a general retail or it's related to something done on the premises? I can't remember off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
there is some small retail component.
I think in general, I would want to dip my toe in very slowly on this.
Well, that's the thing you could do. So you could possibly, I'm not suggesting do it or not do it, enact a moratorium or prohibit it temporarily, look at what kind of regulation you may want to have. If you want to have criteria and keep it away from schools, whatever, et cetera. And that would give you the opportunity to write a regulation. But on the other hand, there's a process going ahead to get the first few, licenses, and that would, potentially exclude the person we have in town, possibly, depending on how you framed it, from getting one.
I'd be interested in knowing the demographic of the clientele they serve. Are they dispensing to locals, or are they getting people coming from a distance to, under the medical, can we get that information?
I could find out.
The dispensary,
The existing one?
Yeah.
I think they tried to distribute them geographically throughout the state pretty
Yeah, they're
well.
limited. There's only like 6 or whatever.
Yeah, not many of them.
Yeah, so I'm just curious how far, or, are they getting, a lot of New Haven? Are they getting,
I think they're getting from East Haven to like where Madison, Clinton area are going.
Yeah, but I just would be curious,
Anybody could go, as long as they got a prescription.
Right.
Yeah, so you're saying.
Once it's legal, you're likely to, how do you deny that?
And again, my thing is the safety of what's going on out there. I know one of my child's, a friend of mine, his kid, had smoked marijuana, and he gave him a drug test, and because he felt that there was something wrong with him, he had to come home, and there was fentanyl in the system from the street marijuana that he bought. And I think that's the biggest concern. That's what's going on today, and probably the biggest reason for me of, saying, hey, you know what, I don't want my kid to think this is okay, but it's better than him buying it from the street, let's just say, even though he can't go buy it, I'm sure. They'll get their hands on something that's safer.
It seems to me we got three options and there's time limit. Option one is do nothing, in which case it'll be able to be located in one, will be located in town, maybe two. Two, we adopt a moratorium, which is just sort of a temporary, we don't accept applications for a 6-month period while we work on some sort of regulations. That means that we're not necessarily prohibiting it altogether, but that if you adopt a moratorium, they can't apply, so that it prevents them, while we're looking at it. And then number three, I think, is the one that I sort of mentioned. Why don't we could have a public hearing without adopting a moratorium, just to get some public input on it, and see whatever.
Moratorium, then have the public hearing, so.
Yeah, you could do, but I mean, you'd have to have a public hearing on the moratorium. Right. So, I mean, you do, because it's a zoning text amendment. I
think the moratorium is a bad look.
Yeah.
And I think when we have the public hearing, we should establish a series of straw men or talking points, or a structure of some kind for people to respond to. Otherwise, it'll be people coming in just rambling. This is kind of a hot button issue for a lot of people. I mean, despite the fact that mammals for as long as we've had us, been people, have sought some form of intoxication. And, whether it's alcohol or tobacco, each of which has been proven to be hideous from a health standpoint, but we still do it, and we still love it. So the point of this is really just coming up with a logical way of regulating it.
And I think the regulation is going to be important, because these people are very creative, and once it does become legal, they will find ways, to distribute and have certain forms of income coming in without the fear of getting arrested. In other words, I've heard people mention video game parties at wedding halls, tournaments with marijuana. You understand? So I think the regulations are going to have to be put in place so we don't lose control of the private parties, because they're not going to get arrested from having marijuana in certain areas.
Massimo, with all due respect, I think that's well beyond what we have to consider here. And if you have to go to a public hearing knowing the hot button ticket, if the town rears up against it, then it'll be a very long night here for sure. But I'm not so sure a moratorium's not a bad idea to see how it works maybe in some other areas. But a public hearing is, you're going to have the pros, you're going to have the cons, and you're going to maybe 2 or 3 good ideas will come out of it. I'm not a big fan of it.
I was very surprised we didn't get more stuff at the medical marijuana one that we approved. We approved, and there wasn't a whole lot of people. I can't recall any opposition.
It was very limited.
It was, I couldn't. I was surprised. So I don't know if we're sort of inventing a parade of horribles. Maybe we are, but it is different. But I just don't know. I mean, part of it is a real curiosity. I fully expected more opposition to that, and there wasn't.
We're just getting into suppositions here, and that might not even be reality. So I just... I don't want to overthink it, is what I'm trying to say.
Give them the opportunity if they are passionate about it. I mean, that's...
Right, yeah, I kind of...
I've always tried to do that with, promoting neighbors to talk and,
yeah,
sort of give people input.
I think it's better for us is it's always good to have had a process and say, well, you had a chance to speak at a public hearing, and then later on to say, what, you did nothing? You never, what's wrong with you guys? We can say, look, we had a hearing on this date, and, you should have spoken or something. So I mean, that's sort of my process bias.
Well, in a perfect world, that works fine, but unfortunately, when we have emotions going all over the place, it doesn't seem to work it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I don't know. I don't know what would happen. That's why I'm just saying the medical marijuana, I thought be more opposition than wasn't.
Yeah, no, that was minor.
I know. No, I don't know. So I guess that's, I don't know if we want to think about it, we want to appoint a committee, you want to just, it seems the options are having a sort of optional public hearing.
It has to work
or nothing.
At the grassroots level, I mean, I really think this is a town legislative issue. They want to come to us for whatever, fine, let them come to us, but I would rather have them start talking about it.
Them being the applicants, the people who want to propose it?
Well,
they're already trying to do that to staff.
yeah, I would like to find at least some criteria that they have to fit on.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Right.
I think that's it. Where do you want it, if you want it, to allow it? Do you want it just on Route 1? Do you want it
I'm
in the
not
town
sure that I
center
would
next to
want to allow
Ashley's
it,
Ice Cream? I mean, if you don't do anything, potentially you'd have it right downtown. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know, but I mean, people may be concerned about it being right next to the ice cream shop with kids going in and out. I don't know. There seems to be some, general consensus that having it out on Route 1 where it is right now is probably the least problematic location, that kind of area in general, a commercial
so
strip.
start a zone for it, like
exactly.
have a zone.
Exactly.
Like, all right, if you want to open one of these up, it's got to be in this set
Exactly.
zone.
That's really, I think, in terms of hours, there are some limitations on signage already built in the law. So,
that's a great thing.
There's limitations on trying to have advertisement that would cater to minors. There's kinds of restrictions like that already.
Have like an ice cream truck.
Okay, so that's the option too. So we propose a specific.
No music, no.
Allowing it. So we're throwing the total prohibition out, and then zoning where we want to do it. And the theory would be, well, we already have it now, and there hasn't been a lot of problems now, and we're going to keep it off of the town center, I think.
I don't discount prohibition if there's a strong.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, you could throw a quickie reg together to that effect if you like, and that could be the subject of the public hearing if you want.
No, I think maybe
and we can fine tune the regulation later if there's more, but we can do a bare bones thing of, okay, it's going to be here and not here, and we're going to limit the hours to whatever, and
why don't you throw something together? Why don't you research it? Yeah, that would be.
I'll see what other towns have got done during August.
And bare bones and then put meat on it later if we need to.
Okay. To just kind of restrict it from the town center and that kind of thing. And
yeah, see where they're successful somewhere else.
Right.
Affect children.
Right.
Because it's going to.
Yeah, this is recreational.
When you look at the numbers, though, we're not going to be flooded with these things anytime soon.
Right.
I mean, we've got like one per 25,000, you said?
We'll have one. Yeah,
probably one, arguably.
Possibly three within the entire,
Right.
So where do we want it? If you want to, no, 0 or 1 is what we're talking about. Yeah, but yeah.
Right next to the porn shop.
Where's the porn shop?
I knew someone would ask.
Right down the road.
Why is that hidden?
Okay.
All right. On that note.
Okay, yeah. So, start looking at that.
All right. I'll come up with some bullet points. I'll email it around and we can.
Yeah. Okay.
You can give me some feedback.
Okie doke.
Can I move to adjourn?
So moved. Motion made by Marcy.
Hand waving.
What's going on?
There's still a little skylight out there. It's not midnight. You guys are used to working.
Yeah, you probably should come up here.
Identify yourself.
To go back to the planning.
On a microphone?
Yeah.
You're on.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the town center and repaving and whatnot.
It's more than just repaving. So go to the town website, look and see what it is, encourage anybody to go to the meeting on next Thursday. Because, yes, there's the trolley tracks. I mean, I remember riding my bike and getting stuck into them years ago. But there's also certain intersections that come into Main Street. This is from Chestnut to South Main, the intersection of the old movie theater. So there's a lot of intersections there that are problematic. And if we're talking about just repaving, that's one thing. But if we're talking about looking beyond, then we might want to adjust an intersection here or there for either turning traffic or completely change again. And this would be the opportunity to do it now while we have the funding to do it and so on and so forth. So if that's going to happen, then now's the time to do it.
And what's happened with the roundabout?
Yeah.
That's gone.
My understanding that's gone, the money's been reprogrammed into, part of this is part of the effort. I think they took the money.
There was not enough space for that.
It would have been
A
pretty
lot of
tricky.
space. You see the space it's taken over there by Bill Miller's?
Oh, it's fine, yeah.
Huge amount of space for.
Well, it's also a state roadway and the traffic goes faster, so it.
Can we revisit Marcy's motion?
Yeah, there was motion. I never heard a second. Someone want to,
Coffee.
motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
There is a second.
Second by Joe. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.